let's see. Looks like we are recording. We are on. We just froze for a second, but I think it's because we're recording. We're live here, not live, but we're recording here with Cary Silkin from Ring of Honor. Welcome to Wrestling with Rip Rogers.
Thank you. And I was shocked. Seriously, I was very surprised. How about that? I was very surprised when you guys reached out to me. Why was I surprised? Because Rip Rogers and I had never met. I was aware of his career and his prolific training. I'm being serious. And I would have thought he doesn't watch modern wrestling, and why the hell would he have watched Ring of Honor back in the day? So thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad you were here.
My pleasure. Our pleasure is what that is.
I mean, he may have not watched Ring of Honor, but Rip probably doesn't watch much of anything ever. So if that was the case, we'd never have anybody on the show.
I don't watch WWE and I won't watch AEW. I don't watch TV at all, Cary. But somebody will send me something, or I'll see something on Facebook, like last week when that kid missed Bryan Danielson's leg and slammed the ring post, and I got so embarrassed for being a pro wrestler, and it made me want to choke myself.
Vaughn, did you show Rip the? Did you watch with Christian Cage and that Darby Allin throwing him into the stairs?
Oh no, I did not show him that. I thought you meant this. Yeah, Darby, he did the, what was that, like a power bomb or something on the corner?
The metal stairs.
Yeah, it was
turned around.
Yeah.
So they're facing the ring about 3 feet out. And this Darby Allin kid, because how Tony Khan could allow this, because I wouldn't have allowed it. I mean, they might have done it anyway, but, you know, I would have tried not to allow it.
Yeah, so basically like power bombed him or something.
It was horrible.
The stairs from.
It was horrible. But let's talk some stuff here.
But even just to let you know, even when Rip was training all the top stars in OVW, WWE, he didn't watch the shit then. He didn't even.
No.
He wouldn't even stay around for OVW TV. Like
no, hell no.
He didn't watch any of it even at that time.
No, I'm I'm out there, and I know that. But if you do as I say, you will get so good through repetition. You can call a match in the ring 1 hour, 2 hours. It does not matter, and it will make sense.
Well, that's a lost art.
Yeah. Well, let's back up then. We can start from the beginning if you're willing to start from the beginning. If you can, I mean, how did you get into wrestling in the very beginning? Was wrestling something always on your?
Just like most people, I was a fan.
Okay. Well, some people aren't these days.
I've almost pinpointed the exact date, the period of time where I have a cousin, my cousin Mike G, who's 4 years older than me, and he helped me. He was like my big brother. You know, he was the first guy to turn me on to good rock and roll and and weed. And he's a good guy. And he was in the music business, wound up being a music writer, and everything from country to heavy metal. Anyway, back in 1966, that's right, Rip. The kids hear this and they think that year was, BC. Back in 1966, he told me, he would come over. I think it was at my house, and wrestling was on at that time. Of course, we were in New Jersey. WWF on Channel 5. On Channel 5 for 2 hours. From the wrestling capital of the world, Washington, D.C., with Ray Morgan. And I saw it, and my dad brought me up as a Yankee fan, and I was a fan, and my dad really was into pro sports, just a fan, So with wrestling, right away, I was engrossed, and my father's like, oh, you know, that stuff. But whatever. Anyway, I started as a fan, and I followed it most of my adult life. There was a couple of dips, but for the most, finding out about sex, too much cocaine, this and that. But I stuck with it so much that I was working with this band as a roadie, lighting, whatever. We were in Louisville in 1976. We had Sunday night off, and there was a show running. So I went, and I was in and all these stories can be heard on my podcast, Last Stop Penn Station, if anyone cares.
Okay.
Yeah, plug it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, get that in there. Plug that thing.
Yeah, hey, plug anything you want, baby.
All right. So there was a point in the 80s where I had to get out of town quick. We don't have to talk about why, but I had to get out of town quick. And I knew this ex-girlfriend who was in New Orleans, and I got her on the phone. I said, Debbie, I got to get out of here. She's like, Cary, I'm living with this. I have a boyfriend. I'm like, please, just take me in for a night or two. I'm not gonna, I'll get it. So I wound up staying in New Orleans for 6 months, and I would go to the Mid-South. It was still Mid-South then.
Now, what year's this?
Excuse me?
What year's this?
85.
Okay. In 83, I worked for Bill Watts, and I worked 2 Superdome shows there.
Okay. So
and then we worked all the other buildings in New Orleans, because that was Monday night. Every Monday night was New Orleans.
The Muni, right? The Municipal Center.
Okay.
It was on the edge of the French Quarter, not the good edge. It was on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah, what the hell, right?
And on and on. I started, when wrestling in the early 90s was really in the shitter. I noticed ECW. Right now, I live in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I used to live closer to New York City. Excuse me. And I saw ECW, and it was on the TV, local station, and I noticed that there was having a match with the original Sheik, Kevin Sullivan. I'm like, shit. So I went down there. This is before they changed it to Extreme. It was Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Right. And who ran that then?
I'm sorry?
Who ran that then?
That was Todd Gordon.
That's right. I just wanted to, do the history thing.
Right. Prior to Paul Heyman. Eddie Gilbert was booking.
Okay.
I came to learn. So I went to ECW, and my explanation to my friends who thought wrestling, I used to have to go by myself to Madison Square Garden a lot. But I used to say the ECW is cool. They do all the stuff you've always wanted to see, but they never, the WWF or even NWA, they didn't want to go over the line.
Right.
But I went there. I'm going to get to Ring of Honor, and I met some people who Gabe Sapolsky.
Okay.
And we're going to leave out one name, but his initials are RF. If you don't know about it, right? And Doug. And I figured these guys were running a bootleg tape business.
Mm-hmm.
They would, and they were doing well. This is pre-internet. And when ECW closed in 2001-ish, I figured these guys were going to open a little company. And my primary business, and we're skipping. I'm skipping because I don't want to bore you. I'm skipping the 2 years where we had a wrestling magazine in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
That really was my entrance to the business.
Now, what year was that? Those 2 years, Cary?
2000, 2001-ish. We thought we could put out an issue every 2 months. It was a newsstand magazine, but we wound up putting out a whopping 4 issues in 2 years. But I learned a lot. I got to meet Dutch Mantel. I got to meet Bushwhacker Luke, who I talk to almost every day.
Holy shit. I just saw Luke last week.
Right. And, Victor Quinones welcomed us.
Okay.
But Victor Jovica,
Right.
what a piece of shit that guy was.
Well, what the hell?
We could do 2 hours on Puerto Rico here.
It's great.
So I'll get to the Ring of Honor, and then you tell me if you want to jump back.
You don't have to get there yet. I'm still waiting to see who you watched wrestle in Louisville. I was still waiting on that.
I wanted to see if it had to be the greatest show in many, many months with Nick Goulas at Louisville Gardens.
Greatest of all time, right?
The greatest show in many, many months. The rough, tough team at Jerry Lawler and Toji Yamamoto going up the master interns with the manager, Sir Clemens. Don't forget now, that's Tuesday night. We'll see you Tuesday night at Louisville Gardens. Something like that.
Yeah, Tommy Rich was there.
Okay.
And, when Jim Cornette worked for me in Ring of Honor at some period of time, and there were many incarnations of him, and I told him about Louisville going there in 1976. He goes, I'm going to find he says, do you know what was the date? And I did. It was like the first weekend of October. He said, I'm going to bring you a program or a copy of it. He didn't want to.
Of course, yeah.
So, yeah, I think Plowboy Frazier was on the show. Lawler wasn't there. I would have remembered that. I remember smoking a joint in the upper deck.
Uh-huh.
So we did the magazine in Puerto Rico, and then the guys, I met Gabe and Doug and the other guy because they were selling their videotapes. They're selling their videotapes at the ECW arena, and we got to be friends. And I went to them figuring they're going to start a company because there was this is 2002, there was a void. So they didn't need me, right? So I'm like, all right, whatever, it's cool. Well,
I got a question if you don't mind. Like, were you just hanging out at shows at that time? Is that how you got to meet them? Because
yes.
you were just going to shows?
I was going to ECW. So a lot of times I'd go by myself, and there's no one fucking, there's no human being that's worth talking to.
So you would talk to them, you just got in with them by going to the shows.
Gabe used to sell the program. He worked for Paul Heyman. So he would sell the programs, and the other guys had their little tape stand, and they did very well. But and then that was at the time 2000, 2001 was the internet was starting, blah blah blah. So I knew these guys well. I've known them since '93.
Okay.
And anyway, they start Ring of Honor. They don't need my help. Fine. I went to the first Ring of Honor show at the Murphy Rec Center. I went to the next one. It was great. And then around December of 2002, they approached me about getting involved financially. My primary business, I mean, if they would, Rip and Vaughn, remember in high school, best looking girl, most handsome boy, most likely to succeed, best athlete. Well, if they had a most unlikely to succeed, you got them right here, baby. So they came to me looking for money. It was a strange period of time because their business was the Ring of Honor weaved into the bootleg tape business. So they were taping the shows, and this is still the VHS era.
Right.
See, DVDs were a coming. And by 2002 into 3, these VHSs were like the fuck, like ancient history. So they needed money, and I told them, look, the shows are great. You want me to invest, but the show looks like garbage. What do you mean, Cary? I said, and Gabe's a rock and roll guy. His favorite band is like Rush, which is a great band, and he goes to shows. I go, Gabe, you gotta have some magic, some light. You gotta do the magic show. What's that? I go, well, when you go to see Rush or Slayer or Jethro Tull or whoever even we'll go back, Hank Williams Jr. or even Hank Williams. What?
Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs.
There you go. Well, Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. What happens when the show starts? Gabe goes, well, the lights go out. I go, yeah. And what happens when the lights go out? Well, the people pop. I go, yeah. And they even pop at a movie. So I told them, look, you're filming this. We're filming this. It's got to look like something. So we brought in at, significant expense, renting rudimentary ring lighting, 4 posts, 6 lights, and we built a stage, an entrance ramp, and had 1 follow spotlight for the guys' entrances. And we did that show, and all of a sudden it was such a huge difference. And Gabe was like, holy shit. And once we did that, which was like somewhere in 2003 or 4, you couldn't go back. You can't go to the next city and not have lighting. So we did that. I wound up getting complete ownership of the company.
Now, hold on real quick. Before you did all that, you agreed then, I'm assuming you agreed to become partners before.
Right.
You
but
started.
I wasn't a majority partner.
You were or were not?
We're not.
Okay. All right.
But then
Sorry.
some shit hit the fan.
Okay.
Which one of the guys, I'm not allowed, I'm still, what do they call that? An MDA? Not just, some shit hit the fan. And I told the guy that got hit with the shit, either I got 3 choices. I'll give me my money back. It's all yours. Or I'll give you something and go the fuck away. Or if you don't like A or B, I'll sue you. So he chose B. And he went away. And all of us, I was running my ticket agency, which, I started on the streets as a ticket scalper in New York City.
Okay.
And that's on my last stop. Thus, it's part of the last stop, Penn Station. Madison Square Garden is above Penn Station. Anyway, he went. Now I'm the sole owner of Ring of Honor, and this was a big friggin' scandal with what happened. And we had a stink on us. And in case Rip doesn't know about it, Vaughn will tell him later. This had a stink on it that was just, awful. And it took like a year for that to be forgotten about. Anyway, as we proceeded, this is when I had full ownership. Gabe, that's when we had the Samoa Joe. There was a famous trilogy. It's become famous.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe and CM Punk. And we started getting attention. And when Ring of Honor started, it was in Philly. And to go to Boston was a big deal, right? And then by 2004, and I was the full owner, we started going to Chicago, Dayton, Detroit, and we would try to do double shots. And we wanted to get into New York City because like Sinatra, Sinatra was, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, right? You got to fucking do New York City. So we, with great help from it was hard. The prices, Rip, this wasn't your side of the business, but the rental prices and the spaces are just, it's insane. All right, in 2005, just to get, let's just say, into a ballroom of a Hilton that could hold 900 people, 2005 was 20 grand.
Gee.
So we needed a better price. We wound up finding the ballroom of the New Yorker Hotel, which also happened to own the Hammerstein
Ballroom,
Manhattan Center, where they did the first Raws.
Okay, yeah.
So anyway,
I'm gonna have to backtrack again. Where you talked about Punk and Samoa Joe and those guys? Where were you getting these guys? Did you have talent scouts out there? Were you training in-house? Where were you getting the Punks and the Samoa Joes of the world?
I give a lot, even though he won't talk to me or recognize, he's like still fucked up because I fired him in 2008. It was Gabe. Gabe would stay up getting stoned all night, watching whatever he could watch. I guess this is pre-YouTube, but he would get these tapes from, so they discovered Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Brian Kendricks, Jay, plus they had a good eye. They had a good eye for local talent. It wasn't me, right? I was like, I thought of myself as a producer. What the fuck's a producer? A producer is someone who gets the right booker, gets the right lighting, gets the right sound man, tries to get the right building, make sure the merch is good. So yeah, and we became the cool kids on the block, and guys wanted to come. And then in 2005, Noah from Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, they contacted us and they wanted a presence in the United States. I didn't know whether to shit or go blind, right? And they came over, and we wound up going to London twice, Liverpool and London. We wound up going to Japan, thanks to Noah, 2007, 2008. And I held on, even though, now this is all sounding good and exciting, but there was one problem. I was bleeding money, like I was laying on the street like my arm was cut off.
I was going to ask that question. I didn't know if I should or not.
I never
making
made
money at that time.
Not only did I not make money, I lost. Thank God the ticket business was good, and thank God I didn't have children. So I always knew that despite as bad as this thing is, I'm not going to sacrifice my scalping ticket resale office. And I mean, even by 2006 or 7, you said you're picking up your kids from school, Vaughn?
Yeah, well, they're dropping.
How old are they?
I got a first grader and a second grader right now.
I guarantee you the second grader would have looked at the books and said, why do you have this thing? We were but I loved, I had a passion for it, and I knew we had a good product. I knew it, and it was ego, right? And I should have dumped this thing, but I held on. We did some great stuff, between Joe, Punk, Nigel McGuinness, the Briscoe brothers. You know, it's funny, Rip, all the guys that you didn't train, I had.
Uh-huh.
Your guys went to WWE. Seth Rollins, Tyler Black came, you know, he started with us. He was my buddy. He used to be my roommate sometimes because I wasn't drinking and he didn't like hanging with the other guys. You know, and so we could just never make money. And we got a TV deal with HDNet. That's that Access Mark Cuban, right?
Yep. Yep.
I'm talking too much. I'm not letting you
No,
guys.
no. I'll interrupt you every once in a while.
Mark Cuban, the guy that owned, he's like a miniature Tony Khan. He owns the Dallas Mavericks. He owns a million other things. Now he owns, God knows what he owns besides the ones I'm saying, but he's a billionaire. And he had at the time HDNet TV. And this is 2008-ish. And I'm like, shit, they're going to pay us something, right? And we'll be on every week. And they're on the Dish, they're on not the Dish Network. Was it the Dish Network? Whatever. But they were not on a lot of cable systems.
Right.
Right. So point being, I thought, because our business was based on doing a show, making a DVD, and even though it's 4 or 5 weeks old, these people want to see the damn thing because they heard that the matches were really good. Which they were, if you like that kind of wrestling. Yeah. And we had, you know, I go back to, you know, I like the wrestling. I like a variety. Okay. Anyway, we did the HDNet thing.
Did you guys set out to have that kind of wrestling, like to be different style than, let's say, the WWE or F or whatever it was? Was that intentional? Like, because you guys were different.
That was intentional. As a matter of fact, we did 2 tapings of the HDNet show at the Davis Arena.
Oh, really?
Back in 2010, when Cornette was involved.
Oh yeah. I do remember that. Yep.
So
yeah, well, right after I left WWE.
The point is that we were on for 2 years, and we were surviving on merchandise and mail order, you know, which was good. And this didn't mean a fiddler's fart. They only had like penetration of 4% of the country, you know, which was better than nothing. But I'll never forget the first time the show came on, and it was on a decent time, like Thursday at 9 o'clock. And I had, why can't I think of the other thing? DirecTV. That's what they had. DirecTV. They were like channel 398. Okay. And I had DirecTV. So when it came on, I'm looking on our site, the back end of it. I'm figuring people are going to be buying shirts. They're seeing it on, you know, first or the next day. Nothing. So we worked with them for 2 years. All this time, I knew I got to get rid of this thing. And I was approached once with like a message from Jerry Jarrett. You know, it was like a fart in the wind. And CM Punk, who left in 2006, imagine this is how they do business, Rip. They send me a text. How much would you want to sell Ring of Honor? I mean, well, the point is it didn't happen. But then Cornette was working with us because we were doing the TV. And I'll go on record that I'm the only promoter who never got into a blowout fight with Jim. We got along. He had blowouts at the shows, but, you know, whatever. Anyway.
What was your secret? How did you do that?
I don't know, because I know what he liked, and he's a bit of a rock and roller, and I got along with Stacy, and I would take him. You know, he always talks how he hates New York City and
Yeah.
I used to take him to Little Italy to this really good. He would go to see a Broadway show. Stacy, he's full of shit. He embellishes it, but we got along anyway. Jim knew like by 2009, I'm gonna get out. I just can't. I can't do this, and so he brought in Gary Juster to try to Rip. You know Gary Juster, right?
Yeah, Gary was just a gopher.
Right. And he booked the buildings for WCW.
Right. He did that.
But
yeah.
he knew people in television.
Right.
And he knew a guy named Joe Koff. Joe Koff worked for this company called Sinclair Broadcasting.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of them. But I found out in 2010 when I met him that after ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and I guess PBS, Sinclair had the most affiliates. And we tried to do a deal with Sinclair and to buy, I knew the only thing of value I had was the tape library.
Yeah.
But back then at that point, the guys that went to TNA, Impact, like Samoa Joe, Punk was it was WWE star. We didn't have a lot. Eventually, we did a deal with Sinclair, and the amount of money I got for it is embarrassing, but it stopped me from bleeding in the streets. And Sinclair kept me around as the friendly ambassador. Everybody knew Cary, and I was liked. So I was liked by most of the wrestlers and the fans, and I remained in that role just because I liked being around. And Sinclair, with them, they'd pay for me to get there and pay for my room. If I didn't come, I didn't come. But that ended with Tony Khan, and here I am with Von Lillis and Rip Rogers.
So how long was Sinclair? Did they owned it from
2012 to 22?
Yeah, 10 years, right?
Yeah, a lot of these guys used to knock Sinclair, but they didn't need this fucking thing. It was an albatross. When we started on Sinclair, they had 75 affiliates around the country. And Cornette thought this was, he goes, Cary, do you know what WWE would do to have 75? Well, it wasn't 1985 anymore. It was different. Now, there's that Bruce Springsteen song, 57 channels and nothing on. Now there's 1,057 channels and nothing on. So Cornette was all, Cary, they got 75 affiliates. They got one in Charlotte, in West Virginia, and wherever. And they got one in Louisville. And they got one in Tampa. This is going to be on. Now, the theory was right. The people are going to see the show. But it wasn't promoted right, Sinclair. It was, if you lived in Des Moines, it might have been on at 2 a.m. If you lived in Charleston, it might have been on Saturdays on a good time, like 11 a.m., whatever, but it didn't work.
Yeah. And so could you have been on Sinclair without selling? Was that an option?
No, they wanted it. Okay. And I had no choice. I mean, I should have dumped the damn thing, but I was fortunate financially through the ticket business, which is now over, just like everything else, just like wrestling.
So when you were an ambassador,
shut up. And
when you were the ambassador, if I may ask, you don't have to. Were you on the? I know you said they paid for you to go, and were you on the payroll or had any other position with the company? Nothing else.
Nope. But it was fine, man. I go there, I see my friends. I go back and forth. I'd hang out at ringside if I wanted to a match. if there was a title change of a world's championship match, oh, it was cool that Cary gets in the ring and presents the belt. Excuse me. And yeah, but I didn't do it for money.
Did Cornette stay on at that time?
Well, Jim and Juster orchestrated the deal. Gary, see, I left this part out. Gary Juster knew Joe Koff, the guy from Sinclair. I mean, he's certainly not the owner of Sinclair. They're a huge fuck, you know. So Jim knew Joe Koff, and the idea was that Jim's going to be. We had a booker, Delirious Hunter, and Jim was helping him and doing well. And Gary Juster is going to book the buildings. Cary's going to stay around because you don't want to, you know, good old Cary. And the wrestlers are going to stay, and they're going to have better conditions. Instead of me shoving 6 guys in a room, you know, that's how it was supposed to be. So Jim lasted, I believe, I sold it. It was, it was June of 2011. I think he made it to the winter of 2012 when he had a complete meltdown in Pittsburgh. I wasn't there, but I heard all about it. And he, as he likes to call his car, Black Beauty, he got in it and ate 10 Wendy's and went home.
All right.
That is awesome. Do you? I mean, while we're on the Cornette, you said you never got in a fight with him or whatever.
Nope.
You have just one Cornette story from the Ring of Honor time? Anything that comes to mind that maybe with somebody else, maybe a funny story?
If you want to hear about fighting and ribs, there wasn't a lot of that. I mean, here, I'll tell you my favorite Cornette story.
That's what I am.
When he first started coming, besides selling the shows on DVD, we would do so-called shoot interviews. So and I also told Gabe, look, let's respect wrestling history here. You know, we had Bruno Sammartino come into a New York show. We had Bill Watts come in. We had Dusty. We had the Midnight Express, of course. Tommy Rich, Ricky Steamboat. Mick Foley did 6 shows with us because he liked what we were doing. But my best story with Jim is we had Bobby Heenan for the weekend, and Jim was going to do a shoot interview because he knows the history and he's good at it. Fine. So we're at the hotel in outside of Newark. The show was in Elizabeth, New Jersey the next day. And after the interview's done, Bobby Heenan says, hey, why don't we go downstairs and get a drink? You know, get something to eat. You know, we were at a decent, you know, whatever, Sheraton, but it was decent. So I go down. So we go downstairs and we order what we order. And I'm listening to these guys go back and forth, right? And Heenan had to go take a leak. And I remember tapping Jim on the knee and going, dude, it's cool enough fucking sitting here with you, but Bobby Heenan? And he goes, yeah, I know. Yeah, he didn't spend a lot of time with him. You know, Jim would freak out when things didn't go right. You guys know the deal. I mean, on versus, not at me, but he just wanted things, as you guys know, run professionally, and he didn't like the ballet, high-flying Cirque du Soleil type wrestling that is so prevalent now. And yeah, but on a personal level, him and I were always good.
That's cool. So did you ever think this whole time, like when you began ownership of Ring of Honor, I know you had said that, you know, you liked it as a kid. You didn't get into wrestling at a real young age, like you were never trained as a wrestler. Did you ever think, holy shit, I can't believe now I own a wrestling company? Like, did that?
Yep, every day. That it was the problem was I remember, yeah, of course I did, but I also it was poisoned because of the money loss. So I never could sit there and really say this. I mean, I would just have to put that out of my mind. I mean, getting to go to Japan twice and running the Hammerstein Ballroom sold out. They were hanging off the rafters. At 19,000 and 1,900 people. And it was exciting, and people loved the product. I mean, Impact, TNA was going, and WWE obviously, but we were a very, very good alternative. And I was, yes, despite the financial burdens, I was like, this is pretty damn cool.
So do you think, I mean, on the financial side of things, if you want to talk about it a little bit, was it because there was no major TV deal, do you think? Was it the production that you had? Was it all the talent that you were
No, the production we had for its level was good.
The building cost?
Talent was stellar. The business model, it's my fault. We didn't, for the business model, I had to have two guys in the office. A guy told me years ago, probably even when I was on the streets of New York, scalping tickets, smoking crack, he would tell me absentee ownership is the downfall can be the downfall of any business. And I couldn't run the ticket place. I had 5 guys working. We were ticket resellers, scalpers on the phone. This is pre-internet and into the internet. And whether it was Garth Brooks or AC/DC or Elton John, and there's 2 shows at Madison Square Garden or the Meadowlands or the Nassau Coliseum, when they go on sale Monday at 9 a.m., and these people can't get the tickets, the fucking phones light up. So I had 5 guys at one point working with me, and the business was good once again. And I was able to sustain it. As I said before, against what your second grade kid would have told me, Mr. Silkin, you should stop that.
So Cary, I got a question for you. Like, if you was going, like, how AEW runs New York, the once a year, was it at the tennis place, wherever they did about 20,000 people, 20,000, whatever that was.
Yeah, they did 20,000 people 2 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
They did 12,000 people last year. So I was at that show.
So this one will be 8,000.
Well, this one is over, and it was about 8,000.
Oh, was it? Okay. I go say roop, 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 and then there's the level off place. Okay. Now, when you were selling your tickets, would you, like the first time they was coming in, how many tickets would you buy for resale?
Well, I was essentially out of the business, the ticket business, but I'll tell you, I was in the ticket business heavy when Monday Night Raw and even Nitro was hot.
Okay.
And that's when, if they were doing a live Monday Night Raw at the Meadowlands Arena in New Jersey next to Giant Stadium, I could buy 200-300 tickets. And I was lucky to have a connection there too and get rid of them. And the other thing was, back then, whether it was WWE or it was Billy Joel, they didn't price the tickets at $300 and platinum. Platinum this. I'll tell you a story. So we did. You could do well with wrestling back then. Nowadays, AEW was hot on the scalper market for about right after the pandemic. But not like that. The old days. Yeah. But they try to get everyone tries to get so much money for the tickets. It's not just them. But I'll tell Tony, if Tony Khan's listening, he should be ashamed of himself.
I'm sure he'll watch this.
When they were at this tennis stadium a month ago, one of my buddies called me and said, can you get, I know everyone there. So Jerry Lynn works behind the scenes. All right. So the day of the fucking show, I'm trying to show you something here. I look on Ticketmaster and you see the available, I'm going to show you something. I don't know if it's going to, you see the available seats. Like, for example, hang on, guys. Okay. You see this? Is this coming out or is it light? No.
Yeah, it's a little glary, but.
All right. There's blue dots. Yeah. Like blue dots represent open seats. Anyway, right. So at the tennis center, my friend wanted 2 tickets. I look on Ticketmaster before I call Jerry. I see that they've got rows 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on one side of the ring, and they're priced at $495, like they were held back. And why wouldn't you have them priced at $90? So I told Brandon, my friend, I got a feeling you're going to be sitting ringside tonight. Called Jerry. Jerry's one of my best mates, a good guy, no problem. Brandon goes to the box office. It's that exact section, 3rd row. All the comps that night were ringside.
Because they had them overpriced.
He had them overpriced. I'm not here to Tony Khan. I'm not here to knock him, but you can't keep going to the same cities with the same acts.
Yep.
Over and over and over. I'm more interested. I listened preparing to this with Rip talking about going to Portland and going to Nova Scotia, right? The Maritimes, and going in these territories. And I was, a wrestling magazine fan since I've been 10 years old. So I was aware of these territories and there were places to go, and that doesn't exist anymore. But Rip, you don't watch the current product at all?
No, not unless I see something on my phone somebody sent me, or a big so-called, or some big botch.
Right.
Or what I call it, doing stupid shit for no reason.
Well, you got to look at this Darby Allin going into the stairs.
I knew Darby from 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. Buddy Wayne sent him and Cash, and God, they sent him in for a seminar I was doing somewhere or whatever. But at the time, Darby weighed about 145 pounds.
Well,
and
he might be up to 147.
Okay, and he was just doing a skateboarder gimmick or something,
right?
And just doing all this dangerous, stupid shit. I said, Darby, you're just going to get killed in the ring. There ain't no sense to do that, because if nobody sells, it don't mean nothing anyway. They want to jump off the top of the Empire State Building, but that's just part 1 of the spot. Then they want to jump right back up and the other guy do something stupid like that.
They don't let any. They and it was a bit like that in Ring of Honor, but not to this extreme. These guys, and it's WWE. They train them a little better there. They don't let anything register. Right?
No, nobody knows how to really register anything. It's just, it's back and forth like it's all a TV match just to get your shit in. And if I start seeing people throwing forearms and trading and nobody registered anything, that's a big fuck you to me. So no, I respect the business. A punch is supposed to be a punch, and it's like I could not stand ECW because in real wrestling you'd have a wrestling match. It's competitive. The heel's evil. He probably has the manager, and all of a sudden Bobby Heenan uses Nux one time, or he trips him one time, and it's always one thing that many thing, and that was the finish, unless you was with the top guy. And now ECW would go out and do 32 things in a row to the guy, and they just keep kicking out. And most of the guys were skinny fat. So I said, no, I hate this shit. Can't do it.
When I was going to the ECW, I mean, I like a little blood once in a while, but I don't need it 5 times a night. And the other thing was, guys, that they were brought in, besides the hard, the Public Enemies and the gangsters, and they had Jericho, Malenko, Juventud Guerrero, I think, and Lance Storm, Jerry Lynn. So they had some, they had some wrestling, mixed in.
Yeah, that's like when you're booking. I don't want all steak matches. I want a steak match, a chicken match, a spaghetti match, a rice. Yeah, okay. Here's your lucha. This match is doing a dive. I don't want any more. And the one dive is going to be a count out. It's going to mean something. There's going to be blood in this match. There's going to be wild and fire shit in this match. But I want everybody. Okay, this guy's doing a clothesline. I want nobody else to do that. You're not nicking guys' stuff unless we're going to do the figure 4, a build up against the figure 4. Old style booking, because everybody's got an audience for something. Now I'll shut up.
No, don't do it. No, I mean, I'm not a booker or a trainer, but I remember Bryan Danielson, who's highly respected, and he's so damn good at Ring of Honor. I had him from the beginning till 2009. And he used to sit at the curtain from the beginning. His matches were usually in the second half or closing. He wouldn't stand in the back and go over the match for 2 hours. Not to mention they talk about it for 3 hours after it happens, right? He would sit there and watch. And he was like his own policeman. Like, hey, what, you don't do whatever. Like, I'm telling you this, don't do moves that are happening later, or finishes or spots. And Ring of Honor, to your taste, would have been, like, look, based on Jim, we kept it, we kept it at a palatable level. They weren't slapping their leg, 8 million times.
Oh, that wouldn't. No, that's a no. That's a fucking no.
They do it all the fucking time.
Well, that's on management. That's on management for putting up with it.
Well, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I'm very close with Jerry Lynn. He's backstage there.
Yeah.
Dean Malenko's backstage there. Mark Henry's backstage there.
Right.
The Big Show's backstage there. Who am I leaving out? Well, let's not forget some of the veterans, like a Chris Jericho. Point is that they have the agents that can express and try to institute exactly what you were talking about there. But one of those names I mentioned, I speak to, and he just told me no one listens.
Right.
No one listens.
But at least you feel good about expressing it, because they're going to go right to the boss. And then because you fire the coaches, you don't fire the players, like in Major League Baseball, NFL, or NBA or whatever. So
I mean,
they just shut up, go through the fucking motions, knowing they should be saying something, but they don't. They don't want to make waves and just get that check for doing phony wrestling.
when I went to an AEW show, there was I was just after the pandemic. I went to see Jerry, and I'm backstage now. There was a lot of Ring of Honor guys there, like Jay Lethal, my buddy, Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, many guys that I knew and worked for me, and I knew after because I was around till the pandemic and Sinclair gave up. But what the hell was I going with this? I went there and I said to Jerry, I go, a lot of, hey, look, I wasn't in the ring. I wasn't a star like Rip Rogers. I'm being serious. I wasn't a personality. I was just behind the scenes. So you see me occasionally. But I said to Jerry, I go, except for Bryan Danielson and this one and that one, most of these guys don't know who the fuck I am. He goes, Cary, they don't know who I am. And he was serious.
Yeah.
These kids, I don't know which ones, because I'm not gonna name any that I'll never forget. You'll like this. In one of the first times we had Jim, early in his Ring of Honor, because we'd bring him in, and then he went full time with the HDNet in 2008. Anyway, we did a show in Cleveland, and when the show was over, I'm out in the back smoking a cigar, and Jim. I was talking to Jim, and I'm like, I said, Jim, I mentioned to Samoa Joe, and I think the other one was Bryan Danielson. And if I'm it's Joe and Bryan. If I'm wrong and it was Austin Aries and Jay Briscoe, I apologize. But I was talking to them about the territories and how the NWA champion used to go to a city every night, the loneliest job in the world. And they didn't, like I mentioned, talking about Jack Briscoe and Gene Kiniski and Terry Funk and Dory Funk Jr. And they had little to no understanding of it. When I was at that little training session last night, the kid introduced me, and no one knew who I was. One kid did. And I said, hey, guys, well, thanks. I go, you getting good training with Danny here. I got one thing to say. I go, I never was a star, but it's important to know history. I go, if you know history, you could at least not make the fucking mistakes that were made. But it's a different world, man.
Yeah, no, I follow exactly what you're saying. I think it was always, I was in OVW and things like that, and I think it was actually stressed, especially the guys that were there at the time. I know, like Nova always sticks out in my mind. He was always one that, said know the history and watch the old stuff and know who people are, and it's just part of the business, So I'm doing that. What I was going to ask is, what I don't know is when AEW bought Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
Were you in any of that, like on TV ever, or
yes,
acknowledged
yes,
or brought
right
in? I don't remember.
In the beginning. In the beginning, and I made my last appearance at the tennis stadium a year ago.
Okay.
They had me at ringside because they had just got the Ring of Honor belt, and there's old man Cary, and it was Jericho against Claudio, Cesaro, and Jericho. He had me there as part of the angle. I mean, I could go there, but he had me, out at ringside because to do an angle where he hides behind me and pushes me and blah blah blah. But and then after that, my so-called ambassadorial stint has been forgotten about.
Got more questions? Don't leave.
He's going to do the thing with the girls,
Oh,
letting
ahead.
them in or whatever. But this shit is so fucking cool, Cary. That's like whoever you've been talking about, I've had know them. It's like I was the booker for Puerto Rico in '89. So Victor Quinones was right there. I was the last wrestler that stayed at the Tanamah Hotel there. And then
Was that Brody murder or
this
post?
was right after that.
And you went down there after that?
I didn't give a shit. I wasn't a troublemaker.
I didn't say, but
no. But what I mean is, I knew I was sitting at home ready to go to the Maritimes, and Carlos, he called me up out of the blue. He said, "Can you come down here and do this?" I said, "Well, give me a round trip ticket." I said, "If there's any trouble, I'm just getting on the thing and leaving." And I talked to Jose about it, about it. Said, "Hey," he said, "Amigo, come in here." I said, "Oh, hell no. I ain't coming in there." But I used a rent-a-car, a lease car that was Victor Quinones. It was me and Strangler Steve DeSalvo and a Buddha Dean. We rode together every day,
right,
on the island. And I was there for like 9 months. And then I left, but I was going to go in the Maritimes for like the 5th season for Dupre, because he always just let me like run the thing.
Were they still doing business in the Maritimes in 89, 90?
Oh yeah, I was there when I was there in '97. Edge was there, Christian was there, Scott D'Amore was there. Bad News, me and Bad News Allen, Bad News Brown. He rode with me every day, and it was just it was fun. Those guys were green, and all those, and it's like Edge and Christian, and they was all trained by the sensational and intelligent Mass Thunderbolt Ron Hutchison in Toronto. So I was there a lot with him. So he was quite the gimmick. That was awesome.
Yeah, because I talked to Bushwhacker Luke, and he talks about the Maritimes. And as I don't want to call myself a historian, but as reading so much, and it's a hobby. I'm very interested in pro wrestling history.
Yeah, I'm just a fan.
Not ECW, not the Attitude Era, not Nitro. I'm interested. And I've read what I can and watched what I watched with the territories. I'll tell you what, an interesting thing. I just like everywhere else in the world before cable TV, I was getting the WWF, as I mentioned earlier, and it was on Channel 5, and then it switched to Channel 9, and then it was the UHF. It disappeared for like 6 months. Where is it? And there was a dark period in New York. They went to UHF, the Channel 47, Latin channel. Anyway, so once I mastered that, with the help of my dad getting me a better TV for my room, because he wouldn't want me to watch it downstairs. If my mother wants to watch something, or if he wants to watch the fucking Knicks play the Lakers, right? Anyway, in 1971, Channel 47, which was full Spanish, except they showed championship wrestling from WWF in English. Channel 47 at Tuesday nights. I looked in the newspaper, and I'm looking at, I don't know what I was looking for, but I see 11 p.m. Channel 47 Lucha Libre. I knew what that meant from the magazines.
Right.
I put it on, and you know what it was? Championship wrestling from Florida. 1 hour. Then the other Latin channel in the New York market, they had 2 on UHF, Channel 41, around the same time, Wednesdays at 7:30, 2 hours.
The Olympic Auditorium.
You're damn right.
I'm a fan. I can't. We're all the same.
It was the Spanish International Network.
Right.
I used to watch, Jimmy Lennon. It was that
right.
Was Spanish.
Right.
And Raul Mata. right, and Eric Froelich and
Eric Froelich.
Gordman and Goliath. I love
Oh
him.
yeah, Black Gordman. Oh yeah,
He
and the
was
Great
good.
Goliath.
So yeah,
Johnny Red Shoes Dugan at ref.
Oh hell yeah!
Oh hell yeah! Hey, because like when you have the Garden Show, they'd always have a match from Florida. They'd always have a match from the Olympic Auditorium.
I was just going to get to that.
Exactly, and like we was talking about Luke, right? I'm working for Don Owens in Portland, and then Buddy goes to Hawaii. He picks up the Bushwhackers. He gets the Bushwhackers. So in Portland, there's always me and Buddy Rose in the back, and Butch and Luke in the front, smoking the Bob Hope, the dope,
Right.
and doing it.
Well, hey,
it's always after the show.
This is sheep herders time, though.
Yeah, sheep herders, right?
Right.
Brutal Bob, the Chess Miller, and Brian Wickham.
Man, when I was in New Orleans on the Lamb. And I was going to those Mid-South shows. I'm at one, and they weren't telling. I'm at one night, and when the Municipal Center, I mean, the audience had to be 80% Afro-American.
At least.
Is that a proper thing to say anymore?
Oh, well, it was.
It was 80% black, and sometimes they would run the Lakefront Center.
Right.
But regardless, I'm at one of their Monday night shows, and I see a cameraman at ringside suddenly.
Uh-oh.
And do you remember
what's going to happen?
You remember that tag team, the two black guys, the Bruise Brothers? Not the Bruise Brothers.
Pork Chop Cash?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, over the railing from the audience come Butch and Luke. This is the sheep herders. And I'm like, yes, the fucking sheep herders. God damn it. This is good.
Yeah.
And Dick Murdoch was on. Man, that was good. But, when I started going to the Garden, because for me in New Jersey at the time, it was only where I lived, you could either get on the bus or take the train, 40 minutes. The train left you out right under Madison Square Garden. And my cousin, who turned me on to wrestling and weed and everything else to start with, we used to go every month. And see, the Garden, Rip, they had blue laws there. You know what I'm talking about?
No, explain.
The blue law, like they don't sell liquor on a Sunday in some states.
Oh yeah, you had the show had to be over by what, midnight?
Well, not just that. No lady wrestlers.
That's right. And the mask
no masks.
That's right.
No cage matches or chain gimmick matches. And one more thing that really broke my heart. You had to be 14.
Oh, yeah, you had to be 14 to go. Right.
Boxing or wrestling. Now, that was not enforced at every New York venue like Sunnyside Gardens, where my Uncle Henry got me tickets back in 1967. But for my 14th birthday, I begged him. My dad, he's like, all right, we'll go. It's Freddie Blassie came into the territory from LA.
Okay.
Did 3 TV matches, and it was the first time on TV. They didn't put up the X yet.
Right.
I saw blood. And I mean, so I remember who he wrestled. Mike Pappas, Thomas Marin, and I forget, Mike Conrad, I think was the third guy. But 3 weeks in a row, he does the biting gimmick. And meanwhile, I was watching on the Spanish channel. He was a baby.
He was a good. Yeah, I was gonna say he's a good guy, right? Because they turned. Yes, yeah, it's awesome.
So my dad takes me November 15th, 1971, and the main event, Blassie against Morales. I'm like, yes. And we go to the Garden. Typical WWF show. And my father's sitting there, he's laughing. And when the Morales, they used to put the main event on in the middle.
That's right, because there'd be a riot. Yeah.
Right. They wanted to make sure,
Whenever there's a hot finish, they'd put it on in the middle.
Well, I went to most of the shows in the 70s, and I
Okay.
never saw a main event at the end.
Okay.
Never. So Morales Blassie. Well, the crowd was 90% Latino,
Right.
specifically Puerto Rican, which was, New York has a very large Puerto Rican population, and Morales is from Puerto Rico. He used to do the end of his interview in Spanish, like Bruno used to do it in Italian. Right. And so it's time for the main event. No music, no lighting, out walks Blassie. And I don't know if the Grand Wizard was with him or not, but regardless, out walks Blassie, and I stand up. I was 14. My father grabs me by he goes, "Sit down, you're going to get us killed here."
Yeah.
He was right.
That's awesome.
But so I would go so then my cousin and I would go, and we would go every month. And as you said, McMahon Sr. would bring in, since they were showing the pro wrestling from LA and Florida, they would bring in Eddie Graham. They would bring in Boardman. They'd bring in whoever. Plus, and you know this, Vince McMahon was a member of the NWA.
NWA, right.
So they'd bring in Vern Gagne. They brought in Terry and Dory Funk. So, and they would get little to no reaction. You had to be a magazine fan,
right,
which I was.
Yeah.
We had Terry Funk on a Ring of Honor show in 2009. And he said to me, Cornette had the connection. We were going to use him as a special guest referee. Okay. And it was in New York City. So I'm like, well, Jim, what's it going to cost? He's like, whatever he was charging, it wasn't a lot. He says, but Terry asked me if you could do him a favor, and he and his wife wanted to go to see the show Jersey Boys about the Four Seasons, which was red hot at the time. And I said, yeah. And he came in, and he was great at the Ring of Honor show as a guest referee. It was awesome. But in talking to him, I asked him, I said, when I was a kid, I saw you and your brother a couple of times at the Garden. He goes, let me tell you a funny one. He goes, the first time we're there, they had us up against, not Morales, like Manuel Soto, and Hector Serrano, Don Serrano, two Latins. And he goes, this is the first time, maybe it was 73. And old man McMahon sends out his son to, by our corner. The match is getting ready to start, and he says, so Vince Jr. looks up. I hear someone go, hey, like, excuse me. And he knew I wasn't a fan. And he looks down, he goes, and Vince says to me, Vince Jr. says, hey, my dad told me to come out here, be careful with this crowd. And he goes, so I looked down and go, you get the fuck out of here. And he didn't cause a riot, right? But I would love seeing these kind of people come in. They brought in Nick Bockwinkel, and then Dusty Rhodes. My favorite period of time of that era of the 70s was when Billy Graham had the belt for nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was he was like the first super cool heel.
We got the picture, right? We got the picture here that I got the autograph with all the guys, a picture of Billy Graham in 1977, where I got it either in Allentown or the Philly Arena. And it's got all these people that are dead autographed. At Monsoon, Captain Lou Albano, the Grand Wizard, all the guys. They was all dead. But to sit here talking this bullshit is so fucking good. Talking about how Piper talked about how he went to LA and he was doing the bagpipe thing, and fucking Blassie had put the things in the things, or he was trying to play it and it wouldn't fucking work and everything. And then all the guys from Tampa, from the championship president from Florida, they would get the match at the Garden. That's how Dusty got in there. And Superstar Billy Graham was, when I come in, he looked at me, he goes, "Oh, you lift weights." I said, "Holy shit. Wayne Coleman, motherfucker, talking shit." And here's the picture right here. See?
There you go.
Oh,
nice.
All the autographs and all the guys are dead. It's
well,
awesome.
Vince Sr. would bring, this is what I learned. Vince Sr. would bring these guys in. The show was always on a Monday. And unless they had obligations, they could come in Sunday or stay over Tuesday and party in New York City. Besides getting to be in Madison Square Garden, that was an extra bonus. I became friends with George Napolitano.
George Napolitano, all right.
And he told me a story in 1977 or 8. The wrestlers stayed at a cheap-ass Hilton. You think of a Hilton as, they have some lower grade ones. It was on 8th Avenue, which was where all the whores and the drug dealers, this is the 70s, right? So it was loaded with, cops and robbers and whores, girls, boys, you want anything, it's there. You want
That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Drugs, they're there. And if you don't know the right place to go and they think you're a kid from Long Island or from New Jersey, they're going to beat you. But whatever, you know the right place to go, you get the best, you get some decent shit. Anyway, the hotel was on 48th and 8th. The Garden was on 34th and 8th. Studio 54 was on 54th and 8th. So George, who doesn't drink or do anything, is hanging out, and it's after the show, and he's sitting with Andre, and Andre says, "Hey, what about this Studio 54? And George goes, "Wow, it's right up the street." He goes, "Where is it?" He goes, "It's 4 or 5 blocks, little blocks, 48, 49. They went, and they did, they always had the velvet ropes, and you got to be someone. Well, they let them right in. And what happened in there, I don't know, but they had a good time.
I'd like to see pictures of that.
Yeah, they had a good time. But that was a great era. When Billy Graham had the belt, there was that cool factor of him, and he had a great program with Dusty Rhodes. Dusty was good, and Ivan Putski, who for me sucked, but he was so popular.
Yeah.
He was so popular, so I guess he didn't suck because it's about making money, right?
Yeah, to me in the ring, he was
good work, good.
Right,
but
what the hell?
The people loved him, and if you go on YouTube and look up Superstar Graham Putski, Madison Square Garden, it's good. I'll tell you one of his ones that wasn't good, and when I mention the name, you're going to know why. Mil Mascaras.
I had to work with Mil Mascaras a couple times.
Yeah, how was that?
Fritz Von Erich brought me into a sold-out 11,000 people 4th of July spectacular in 1983 to work. I was working for Watts. He had me go over to Fort Worth and work with Mil Mascaras. So I knew it was a no-sell. You do the best you fucking can and just do your job. Who cares? You make a lot of money. So I tried to get heat. He would just register and shake his head with his mat. I said, "Yeah, you're over." So anyway, he made a lot of money. He was successful. What the fuck? And I'm a part of history. So what the hell, right? But yeah, he was. But
did he
when
wear
I
his
was,
mask in the shower?
yes, he did.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, he did. But when I was growing up, I idolized Bill Masters because he was always in the main event in
Right.
the Olympic auditorium, right? It didn't get me.
Not
I
plus
was
in
the
the
biggest fan.
magazine.
I was the biggest fan as you could get of Mil Mascaras. And then then Dos Caras come in, right? Holy shit.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, they loved him in New
No.
York City too, obviously. But yeah, but I wound up meeting Billy Graham. Ring of Honor did two shows in L.A. It was we couldn't afford to go to L.A. to get everyone out there, but there was a convention and whatever. So at the convention, Graham was there, and I went up to him. He didn't know. He don't know. I don't Ring of Honor.
Right.
He don't know. He didn't know. But anyway, I said, dude, I used to go to see you at the Garden. It was great. Da, 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 da. He looks up from the table and goes, I told Vince, turn me babyface. Now, this isn't 2008. That's is 40 years later, 30 years later. I told him to turn me babyface. And that son of a bitch didn't do it. And he, it could, but he still was holding on to that in 2008. God bless him.
Probably kept him alive. But he was Hogan's spot that should have been him.
It should have been him, but he fucked up.
Right. But what the hell, right?
It is what it is. I mean, I was there the night. I didn't go a lot in the 80s. I was doing too much cocaine, but I did see. I did see. It's like if you talk to our grandparents' generation. Ooh, Don Larson pitched a perfect game in the World Series against the Brooklyn Dodgers at Yankee Stadium in 1956, 27 up, 27 down. There's 500,000 people that say that they were there.
Right.
Right. So, but same with when Snuka came off the cage.
Yeah, he came off the cage, right? How many?
Now, Mick Foley was there. Bully Ray, Bubba Ray, he was there. And there's another future star. But Cary Silkin was there. I went by myself. I couldn't get anyone to fucking go. This is even before I was, scalping tickets on the street. I was, and I bought a ticket outside, a fourth or fifth row ringside for $20. I remember I was on the side where he came off from the corner on the left side, so I wasn't seeing him come at me. Whatever, it was fucking cool. And
Cary, these are the greatest fucking stories I've ever fucking heard, and I don't think I've ever been so. No, get wound up. I'm excited and shit like that. That's like Terry Funk when in 1992, I'm in the caravans in England, Austria, and Germany, and Regal's there with me, and Max Payne. Terry Funk comes in, Jimmy Snuka comes in. So we're just letting them tell stories, do whatever. Terry's drinking beers, Snuka's smoking the dope, having a great fucking time. Now I got to tell you, in 1991, who was the guy that would bring people? I got my pictures taken with Buddy Rogers in 1991 before he died.
John Arezzi.
Yes, John Arezzi, right. And then I did some porn there, just stills, and I'd change the hair and the beard, with beard, without beard, dark hair, long hair, but what the hell, right? But to have the pictures taken with Buddy Rogers. And the thing about it was I was just walking. Buddy Rogers goes, "Rip, come here." And I go, "Me?" He goes, "Rip Rogers, come here." I said, "Holy shit, Buddy fucking Rogers telling me to come here."
So let me ask you, how, you had been around many years at that point.
Right.
Where would he specifically have known you from? Because he had to know you from somewhere.
Well, probably off cable TV.
Right.
Because I'd worked a whole bunch of shows for hell. When I worked for Ole, I was running developmental towns for him. So I would be the announcer. I'd work the first match. I get paid for this and that. I got the the daily stipend, your mileage, and then Ole always said, well, you're supposed to take $300 out of your and put it in your pocket on the side. Well, I said, I was trying to do a good boy and do it. He said, oh, hell, take the 3, right? So
Ole's not that bad a guy.
Oh, no, I loved Ole Anderson and I loved Bill Watts. All they did was they didn't lie to you. No, you're going to work underneath. You're going to do jobs, and more jobs. If you like it, okay. If not, I got 1,000 guys wanting to come in that don't give a fuck.
We've
it's
heard
all up to you. Ole was fucking awesome.
Rip's one of the only people I've heard say that.
And I worked for Watts in Mid-South, and then I worked when he was at WCW. Watts would say, okay, we got a pay-per-view. Do you want to work security? You want to hang out with me when we're taping it and you can eat food, or you want to work a dark match? And that was it.
Well, you want to have people in your life, whether it's wrestling or not, that are fucking loyal. And loyalty has gone the way of the fucking dinosaur. Everybody, very few people have loyalty. All they want to do is stare at this,
right,
and get their dicks hard because they get a bunch of people that like it on Twitter and Instagram and the self gratification. And I'm a co-conspirator sometimes to doing that, but that's what it's come to. There's no personality. I mean, in the Ring of Honor dressing rooms, okay, 2004 and up, you didn't have the smartphone, but the phone started, then the BlackBerry came in. By the time it was 2009 and 10, these motherfuckers, my dear friends, the Briscoes, the Bucks, Nigel McGuinness, this one, that one, some more than others, they would just stare at their phones. No one would, not 100, you know what I'm saying. It ruined wrestling, it ruined society, but it ruined the stories like you're telling me or I'm telling you. How do you have any stories if you just want to look at a phone?
I was in OVW at that time, and it became that in the locker room.
Does this make any sense or?
No, that's what I'm saying. I was in OVW at that time when the phone in 2007 and 2008, and it became that in our locker room. I mean, that was 100%.
Right. It's an epidemic, and these, here, check it out. My podcast, Last Stop Penn Station, besides all the wrestling stuff, is this ticket scalper rock and roll life. I mean, when I say rock and roll life, it's like on the fringe. I had an old expression, Rip. A male groupie's pussy is cocaine. So, I'll repeat that. A male groupie, his pussy is cocaine. Because let's say you're a big fan of Bob Seger. Let's say you're a big fan of Metallica. Let's say you're a big fan of Garth Brooks. Well, and to get close to them, even if it's the road crew or, like or the truck driver, well, it was the same in the wrestling business, right? So I learned that. So some of my, I was a half-ass coke deal. I was with cocaine. I was my own best customer. It was terrible shit. But I used that. So and then leading into my tickets. When I was working the streets of New York, you had guys, scalpers. They named Silent Sydney, Blockhead, Drugstore, the Black Cow, the White Cow, Little Jake and his friend the Computer, Freddie the Weeper, right? And the point I'm trying to get to, I'm not doing a good job. These were fucking characters.
Of course, it's the way wrestling should be.
in characters. And, you know, same as in wrestling. Hey, I don't care if you worked in a factory, right? I'm no which is fine. You had a job from our parents' generation. They were at work. If they're there for 30 years, there were characters. How can you have a character or become a character? And we're not talking about characters appearing on a pro wrestling show. We're just talking about, hey, you know, Uncle Louie, what a fucking character. Or, you know, Crazy John down the street. Oh man, he's a character. They're dying. We're dying. You know, and that is a fucking shame.
Hey, speaking of cocaine, can you get into the Belushi story?
It's too long.
Just a little bit of it, just something.
1978. I'm 22 years old. I don't know nothing, but I think I do. And my cousin, who I've mentioned now for the third time, he was a music editor of a New Jersey, New York music paper. So this is 78. You know, there ain't no internet. So anyway, people would advertise in the Aquarian, it was called, in the Village Voice, you know, like clubs, right? You know, so-and-so band Wednesday, so-and-so band Thursday. So, you know, hundreds of them. And Mike would get treated well because he had power to give people publicity. So he was always getting these, they would call them showcase events. A band that hadn't been signed to a label that was half decent, and they were going to have, they had an agent who was able to send out letters to whoever, Chrysalis Records, A&M Records, this one, that one, CB, all the record companies, right? And hopefully someone's going to show up and see this band. So he had these extra passes for this band I've never heard of and didn't remember the name. It was at a place in New York City. It was on 72nd by Central Park. It was the summertime or May, and weather was good. So we go, and my MO was I'll wrap up some $50 and $100 cocaine packets, and I'll go. I'm not going to stand there, you know, like who needs coke. I go up to the fucking sound man of the band. Hey, if any of you guys are looking for something, you know. So, and he says to me, yeah, you know, hang out with the intermissions is like, you know, in 40 minutes. So I'm with my friend Jeff, and there was like a half circle bar. Now, I was working at the time, as I mentioned to you, I was working with like as a half-ass roadie, and just club bands and lighting guy. So I really wasn't around a lot on Saturday nights. And my friend Jeff says to me, he's like pointing, he goes, look over the bar on the other side. That's John Belushi. And I go, oh yeah, the guy from Saturday Night Live. And I look over, and here's this sloppy, drunk, rambunctious looking. So I said to Jeff, hey, go see if he wants any shit. Okay. Well, Jeff comes right back. He goes, he just blew me off. So the band ends the set. The sound man's looking where's the guy with the coke? I go in the back, which was like, you know, a typical. It was like the manager's office. There's like 20 people in a room and there was one chair and one table. And I'm letting the guy try the shit, and the shit was pretty good. And I hear this voice go, yo, you got a gram? And Rip, maybe you didn't partake, but remember those little bottles with the chain attached to the top and it had a spoon on the end? I closed the bottle and held the spoon and let it drop. And it was Belushi sitting at the one chair with his feet up on the desk. And I go, yeah, I got a gram. And he gets up and he was, I'm not that tall. I'm 5'8", and he gets up, he goes, you got a gram? I go, yeah. He goes, you got two? I go, yeah. I go, you got any money? He goes, listen. They're right. This is a Tuesday night. They're writing Saturday Night Live right now. I'm like, it's like 10 at night. He goes, what do you think? They come in 9 to 5? They're writing it. He was an asshole. They're writing it right now. And he was with this guy with long hair, handsome dude who was with a gorgeous woman. And he goes, come on, let's go down to the NBC building where he goes, I'll get the money. All right. Now the sound man, he's going, where are you going? I knew enough to fucking, so I said, I'll be back. We go up on the street and we go to hail a cab, and they got the regular cabs and the checker cab. The old English check, you needed a checker cab. There were 5 people. So my friend Jeff hails the wrong cab, and Belushi goes, no, you asshole, we need a checker cab. I'm like, this fucking guy. So we shake hands on the street. John, the guy with the long hair, Danny, the lady I forget, blah, blah, blah. We're in the cab. We're going down. Vaughn, you wanted to hear it. You're getting it.
I'm ready, baby.
We're going down to 40 Rockefeller Center, 50th Street, between 5th and 6th Avenue. And in the cab, Belushi must have said 4 times, you got the shit, right? You got, I go, yes. So the other guy who was very polite, I'm listening to him talking to his lady, and I hear him say, hey, tomorrow night when we go to dinner with James and Carly. Well, I knew the only James and Carly I could come up with was James Taylor and Carly Simon. But I kept my mouth shut. And we get to the building, and Belushi signs us in. The guy's looking at us like, and we go up to whatever it was, the 17th floor, and it's like people are running around, and Belushi says, come on. And we go into this little office that was his, and he says, he goes, give me 2 grams. I go, well, give me the money. He goes, I'm getting you the money. And I give him the shit, and he takes one of the bags, and the stuff was good. And instead of properly crunching it, he takes a dirty ashtray and turns it upside down so the flat, and does it, and pulls a card out of his wallet like a pig, right? And he goes, I'll go get you the money. Relax. So now I'm in the room with this Danny and this lady and my friend Jeff. And I said, hey, Danny, what do you do, man? He goes, I play guitar. I didn't say nothing else. And then I look on the wall, and it says in magic marker, John, big, John, comma, glad you could read the writing on the wall. And it's signed Chevy. So it's Chevy Chase, right? Well, Belushi comes back. He scraped together the money, and we hung out for about a half hour. And at some point, I said to Jeff, I go, come on, let's go back to that club, because I had more shit. And, I wasn't starstruck, right? It wasn't like I'm hanging out with Dustin Hoffman or Robert De Niro or somebody. He was a fucking, I left out a big part. This was the night he had come back from making Animal House. Mm. And he was still that fucking character. I mean, whatever. So I tell these guys, listen, pleasure meeting you. We're going to go back to the club. And we shake hands. And Belushi said, let me walk. Now he's a little nicer. Let me walk you boys to the elevator. And he's this big and we're a little higher. And he puts his arms. He goes, listen, guys, do me a favor. Don't mention this to anybody. We're good. We go back. There's more. There's more. We go back to the club. And I go see the sound man. He takes a whatever. And all of a sudden, this is like we're in the club. Maybe it was like we were in NBC from, let's just say, 11 to 11:45. We go back, the club's open till 3 a.m. We go back to the club. We get there at midnight. Well, about 1 a.m, who walks in? Belushi and this Danny. Danny sent his lady home. And he comes up to me and he says, you got more shit? I go, yeah. I said, you got more money? And he goes, I swear to God, this is true. He goes, look, you know where you could find me. Yeah, like I'm going to go running. They're going to fucking arrest me and think I'm nuts. Oh, I want to. So Danny, you know what? I got to backtrack. When I asked him, what do you do? He said, I play guitar. I said, anyone I would know? He goes, well, I just finished doing some stuff with Linda Ronstadt and Jackson Brown. And I just let it be, right? And I guess he was going to dinner with James and Carly. So that was, I'm like, whatever. So he was a very nice guy. His name is Danny Korchmar. He's still alive. If you look on any Jackson Brown, James Taylor, Carly Simon, Carole King, there's a laundry list. He was the man. Anyway, Belushi didn't have money. And Danny was like, John, chill out. He says to me, look, Cary, you've been very good. He goes, look, I'm staying at the Plaza Hotel. And he shows me his room key. He goes, I'm not going to screw you. He goes, there'll be an envelope there.
Keep it going. I got to piss. Keep it going.
I was the one with the bladder problem.
No, I'm 69 years old. I got to pee an hour ago.
How did they not have money? They just didn't want to carry money because they thought maybe they would get mugged or something, or
no,
just didn't have money.
No, they had credit cards.
Oh,
I'll wait till Rip gets back. I hope I'm not boring you guys.
No, not at all, man. This is awesome. This is my favorite kind of stuff. Just telling stories, man. Especially older stuff. I love that shit. So no, this is great. I only have like 3 questions left. I want to actually ask you at some point in time before we get off here.
Well, when Rip comes back, we'll wrap up the Belushi story.
All right.
But
I appreciate you staying on this long. It's great.
Yeah, I'm the one. I'm going for a bladder procedure Wednesday. So I'm the one who's with the pissing. So this Danny is trying to convince me to give him 2 grams of cocaine, and there'll be $200 at the Plaza Hotel under the name of Cary Silkin the next day. And I might have been 22, and I might have been naive, but I wasn't that naive. And but I could read people most of the time. And I just said, you know what? If it's, he just said, dude, it will be there. Here's my key. Here's my license. You don't gotta, I didn't want to, he wasn't going to give it to me, but he just, look, he was like apologizing. And Belushi kept yelling, you know where you could find me, God damn it. And I'm like, Danny's telling him, John, shut up. So I gave him the shit. Next day, I go to the Plaza Hotel, 2 p.m, he said, and I go to the front desk, and there's an envelope in my name. but there's nothing in it. There's a note. Cary, I am so sorry. I will see you at 5 p.m. I'll be in the lobby. I apologize, Danny. 5 p.m. There he is. Danny Court standing there looking like $1 million. And he goes, here. And he gives me an extra 50. And he goes, look, that was really cool. He goes, I hate to ask you for any more favors because you've been so good. I go, no, what's up? He goes, do you have any weed on you? I go, I got a little. He goes, listen, I'm going to dinner with James and Carly tonight. I just wanted to bring a joint. And that's it.
Wow.
That's the story.
You think Danny is going to watch this show?
I doubt it because this has been my podcast. I did the full version of it.
Yeah.
And there was a documentary on Belushi recently, and a guy from the New York Post got hold of me because he had Googled my podcast of Belushi, which was 2 years ago. Whatever. Now, Danny Korchmar, I don't think he'd give a fuck. What a good guy.
Oh, man, that's great. So we can get this wrapped up. Like I said, I just had a few questions I wanted to actually ask. Did you ever have, back to Ring of Honor, did you ever have any talks with Vince McMahon about?
Nope. But
never.
He used, of course, he would cherry pick our talent, right?
Yeah.
But the weirdest, check this out, Rip. Let's just say, we used to, depending where we were, we drew 400, 600, New York, good, but eventually Philly, 700, 800. We're going to date, we would book the date, we would go to Detroit like 4 times a year. So when the show would end, we would put tickets on sale for our return. Take the money, right?
Yeah.
So we have a date for Detroit. Like we announce our next date for Detroit. I'm just using this example. We announce our next date for Detroit to be December 1st. We're leaving, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and our shows were always on a Friday or Saturday. It would seem like there would be a Monday Night Raw or a house show in Detroit, maybe not on the exact same day, but the week of or the next day. Because the wrestling fans budget, and it happened so many times, and it wasn't just Detroit, whether it was Boston or Chicago. It's like this motherfucker, right? McMahon or whoever works with it, not him personally, but yeah. So what do they care about Little Ring of Honor having 600 people at their show? They did.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think I'm right or wrong? You would know better.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
I
just didn't know if he ever offered it or any talks of actually buying it.
No. He was unaware of it, but guys like Bruce Pritchard and whoever else, Bruce Pritchard type. I'll tell you who was a pain in the ass, the TNA people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They didn't play nice. They made believe. This is back with Dixie Carter, right?
Yeah.
And what's his name? He died. Bob. Who was the guy that worked behind the scenes? Bob Ryder.
Yeah, I could see his face, but I couldn't.
Bob Ryder and whatever. They didn't play nice, and So, but no, McMahon never offered nothing.
What about the reports? I don't know if it ever came out as a fact or not about the amount of money that Tony Khan paid for Ring of Honor. Any insight on that?
No,
I mean, I think it was listed at like 20, 30, 40 million, something like that.
There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. I mean, Joe Koff, who I'm friends with, who was the CEO from Sinclair that dealt with Ring of Honor, and he probably wouldn't tell me because I've never asked him, but I mean, if I had to guess, I like gambling a little. I would say it was maybe 5 million, maybe. What are you? All you're buying is the. If I could, first of all, I couldn't have held out. I've been a moron. I was a moron enough to keep the fucking thing going to 2011. As good as it was, or as many good times as I had. Look at this Vaughn. He's on his fucking phone.
I'm not. I was reading my last question for you.
I'm just teasing you.
I'm not on the phone.
I'm sorry. Yeah. The only thing of value was the tape library. That's it. There were wrestlers that were under contract by Sinclair. You know what? People knock Sinclair Broadcasting. They paid 20 guys and gals or more all through the pandemic. Who do you think Vince would have done that? Well, I think he did.
Yeah, but they still ran though too. I don't know about Sinclair. I mean,
Sinclair had a 6-month moratorium, and then they started because of Sinclair being such a right wing. I don't want to start talking politics, but they're as right wing as you could go. Like make Fox News look liberal. They wanted they ran shows. They had such protocols that there were no fans. Just like but it took them 6 to 8 months to do it, and then eventually, when the pandemic thing was over, Ring of Honor limped out, and it was hard. But what I was going to say was, Sinclair took care of these kids, and people, and that's not a common thing in this business.
Right. Yeah. So just to show you, since I had this up, I mean, this is how much prep work we do here. I took a scrap piece of paper that I found and started writing down some questions as we were talking that I wanted to, that popped in my head that I wanted to ask. So this is about all the prep work we have.
Usually we don't have any.
Well, I just did it today. I just did it sitting
Chris
here.
Jericho did the same thing. He had me on his podcast after the last real Ring of Honor show, and we're doing it like this, and he keeps looking down. And I didn't say to him. I eventually said, "Is anything good on the phone?" He goes, "No. When you ask something, when I hear something, it triggers something, and I write the question."
It does.
I'm sorry, Vaughn.
No. I don't know. You're fine,
Hey,
man.
Cary, can you tell me off the top of your head of what show you had in Ring of Honor? I don't give a shit about the gross, because you could do like AEW and have a $64 cheap seat, right? I'm not talking about the money. What was where you drew the most people?
I'll tell you exactly. We were the first company that started the now. You know how when they have WrestleMania now, there's like 800 events?
Right.
Well, in 2004, WrestleMania was at the Garden, 20th anniversary.
Okay.
We ran Elizabeth. So the next year, I believe it was in Chicago. And we had established a building there, and we realized that Chicago weekend, we drew like a little over 2,000 people to one of the shows. And we were working with that Dragon Gate Japanese company,
right.
Scumbags they were. But that would be our peak. And then in the Sinclair era, when Cody Rhodes and the Bucks act was hot for a little while, and it was, we drew 7,000 people.
Wow.
But wait, after going to see Freddie Blassie and Pedro Morales and seeing superstar Billy Graham and standing on the fucking streets in pissing rain and freezing cold or hot weather, trying to sell tickets for a shit Knicks against Atlanta game or a poorly attended Deep Purple concert. 2019, God bless Joe Kopp and Sinclair. The WWF E was at Giant Stadium, and we ran the Garden, and that had been locked up by McMahon, but he was doing 5 nights, Friday, Saturday, 5. Friday night NXT in Brooklyn, at the Barclays Center, it's called. Saturday Hall of Fame in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. Sunday WrestleMania at Giant Stadium. Monday Night Raw at the Barclays Center. And Tuesday SmackDown at the Barclays Center. And the Garden people said, you know what? You got it. And that's all Joe Koff. I had nothing to do with it. But I got to walk out and be at ringside and, get in the ring a couple times because there was a title change. And it's like I was the most unlikely guy to be able to have that thrill. So that's was a thrill. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
You got the coolest fucking stories, man. That's
Come
like
on,
I was
all the people
No, but I was talking about, that's like we used to the old ICW territory.
Right. Now the ICW territory, let me make sure I'm on the ball here. That was where Old Man Poffo.
Right.
And obviously Lanny and Randy, and all the outlaw wrestlers who were competing against Jerry Jarrett
and Fuller.
Doing these shows.
So then me and George Weingroff were business partners. Roop, Garvin, and Orton were business partners. But the most we ever did was 2,400 people, and that's like a 4 or 5 of no, that was of all the shows we ran.
It wasn't great,
huh?
I said back then, in comparison, it wasn't a fabulous number, but it's okay.
Yeah, the thing about it was we ran on usually a lot of times we'd run 2 shows on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On 2 Saturdays, we actually had 3 shows going because we had 14 TV markets. We were against Barnett. We were against Ron Fuller. We were against Jerry Jarrett. We were against Dick the Bruiser. We against the Sheik. We was against Bob Geigel. So we were all the outlaws, and I was running towns, doing shit, and I learned so much shit with them. But growing up, I just shut the fuck and listened because I had these guys that were bookers before, and then Boris Malenko was in there for a while before he moved back to Knoxville.
As opposed to my era, you probably made. I'm being serious. You probably made money. The company probably made money back then with maybe not millions, but it was profitable.
Yeah, but it's like the Angelo. We needed a new ring truck. He bought a $37,000 ring truck. He bought 2 diesel vans. The record for the motel rooms, he supplied 1 motel room. So we had the heels, the baby faces. The record was 16 people in the room. I was underneath the sink, but it didn't cost me nothing, right? I woke up and said, I made it.
There you go.
And it was just the stories.
Yeah, I mean,
but we had the shitty times. We would have the shitty station on the shitty time where Jarrett had the locked in time for Louisville, for Memphis, for Evansville, for Lexington, where we had the shitty ones on the shitty stations that would get, all of a sudden you're dark this week. Then all of a sudden we're going to 2 a.m. The next week on the weakest station around. But we'd have some stations like San Francisco and Mobile and a couple in Montana and Puerto Rico that would actually pay us.
Right.
We was sending the tape over. And then when UPS or the bus station would break down, I'd have to get in my Pinto and I'd have to deliver all the some of them was 2-inch tape, some of them was 3/4, some of them was 1 inch or whatever. So I learned so much about running towns, the wrestling business, just by shutting up. And
that was the wrestling business.
That was the wrestling business. Yeah.
I tried my best to replicate that in the 2000s to the best of my ability, but yeah, I'm fascinated by all that stuff. And I was bringing up the thing before about characters You lived with these fucking characters, these lunatics, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
We were all some kind of criminal.
Right.
Right. We were all some kind of fucking perv and get in line, right? So, yeah, it was all that way. And then when I go to different territories, I'd ride with Ernie Ladd or Grizzly fucking Smith, or me and Bundy would be driving together and just having the time of your goddamn life. All you wanted to do was get GYDS, get your dick sucked,
Right.
and then hit the buffet and hit the gym and train hard and just live the dream. And every day was a holiday. Every day was a fucking Saturday. It didn't get any better than fucking pro wrestling.
Absolutely. You know, and I didn't experience that era. I mean, as a fan, but I was always aware because I used to I bought all the magazines, and the Ring Wrestling magazine used to have extensive reports in the back, not just results.
Right.
So I'd be reading about, the bloodbaths in Texas and the brass knuckles match and the Sheik in Detroit and I saw the Florida wrestling and the LA wrestling, and I knew about Roy Shire. I knew about Jerry Lawler and Kaufman. I knew about Papa, your group, and I was fascinated by it. And it's an era, you know, and I hear Dutch Mantel say this, and I got to know him in Puerto Rico. We didn't talk about the magazine, and we'll have to do it another time. But and I mentioned this to you on the phone. Once I got to know Dutch, and I was telling him some of my New York street stories, and I'd be saying to him, "Hey man, with Andy Kaufman, and then you worked for Ron Fuller, and what about the Pensacola that he'd like, Cary? I want to hear more of them stories about New York City in the 80s.
Yeah,
me too.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the funnest one I've ever done.
Well, that's a high compliment. I gotta go. I gotta get going. And if you ever want to do this again,
yeah, man,
you guys are awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on. And you said you tried to get Ring of Honor, you know, to be like. I mean, Ring of Honor still is technically going. The name's still out there. That's something you should really be proud of. That Ring of Honor is still.
I am. And when relevant. I put on, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying that it's still recognized and relevant and on a national scale. I mean, you had so much to do with that. That's got to, you know, that's still got to be something you're very proud of.
Whether I put on WWE, which I rarely do, or I put on record AEW because so many of the guys I worked with are there. It's like watching a fucking episode of All My Children. And I'm proud of them. And I'm happy.
You were a big fucking part of pro fucking wrestling, Cary, with Ring of Honor, United States of America. That's your red badge of courage for putting up with it, gutting
either
it
that
out.
or Rip, either that or get me one of those old dunce caps.
Yeah, I'm stupid. Yeah.
Last question. You talk music a lot today. Who's your favorite band? What's your favorite band?
My favorite all-time band is Jethro Tull. You know, Aqualung sitting on a park bench and all that. You know, I loved. I got being so close to New York City. You know, I got this God kid who's 17 years old, and his brother, two of them, one's 16. They don't know nothing. We used to take the train at 17 years old to New York City, which was easy. And we would we didn't care if it was AC/DC or Elton John. We didn't care if it was Paul McCartney or Bad Company or but I got to see Led Zeppelin. 73, Houses of the Holy. Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick tour. And Paul McCartney, first time he came after the Beatles, Wings Over America. The Who, when they did Quadrophenia for the first time. Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead. We liked everything. We liked the Allman Brothers, the band, Grateful Dead. We liked the country rock, Marshall, and we also liked the metal, and we liked the Billy Joels and Elton Johns of the world. An Elton John show in the 70s, once you were in, people think Elton John, it's, soft. And man, he was fucking awesome. And once you got inside, there was very little difference between the crowd and a Zeppelin show or an Elton John show.
Right.
They were it was a golden fucking era. And the music, thank God, we'd all like to be younger. But man, this music today, I know I said, Jesus Christ.
So you like
what
it?
Happened?
Hey, I'm still thinking about watching the Ed Sullivan Show and the Dave Clark 5 coming on, the
Fuck
Beatles
yeah.
coming on,
Remember
Freddie and the Dreamers coming on.
Right.
What it was all about.
The Doors, they had it. It was
Yeah.
just like with Elvis. You hear the story that Ed said they wouldn't show him below the waist.
Right.
Jim Morrison did some fucked up shit. And the Stones on Ed Sullivan, he went up to them and said they were going to do the song Let's Spend the Night Together.
Yeah.
And they made them, and you could watch this on YouTube. He made them change the lyrics, and they abided to Let's Spend Some Time Together.
Yeah.
And it was a special era. I was too young to see Hendrix or the Doors or fucking Janis Joplin. That was, they all passed away before I was going. I started going in 73. And yeah,
Awesome.
Nothing's as good as it used to be, guys.
Plug your shit now. Where can we find you? Podcast, anything else you got going on out there?
My podcast, which is essentially, there's 75 episodes on iTunes, Apple, fucking Spotify, this, that. There's a Last Stop Penn Station. If you want to hear these stories, I did it with Ian Riccaboni, who's the now.
Oh shit! We know Ian from Monster Factory.
Absolutely, and he was my co-host, and he was squeaky clean, and I was fucking dirty and disgusting.
Fucking awesome.
Talking about the fucking whores and trannies on 9th Avenue. We used to get blowjobs. We didn't know who was sucking our dick, but it felt good. So
just stick it in the glory hole. What the hell?
Right? Glory holes. I just tell people.
All right. Anything else to plug?
There was Rip in the city with the adult bookstores. There was like one glory hole per person of the population.
It don't get any better. It don't get any better than that.
No.
Shit.
Fuck it. But anyway, hey, listen. I had a pleasure. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for everything, Cary. Wow.
Hey, we're gonna right before I hit stop. We're gonna do a head bob. So this is Starcade. Starcade's a rock rap group. They got some videos out. So they do our music here at the end. So you gotta just give us a head bob on the outro. We really appreciate it. And I am going to end this thing right now. Thank you so much.